Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange National Hockey Day. My name is Scott Morgan of Florida City Mad Mouse, joined by Mike Santos, my co-host, and we're going to have a good show tonight. We're going to do a lot of rapid fire stuff, and there's a lot of news out there in the National Hockey League, so Mike and I are going to get to it. So if you're looking for information in a very quick, brisk manner, you're going to get it tonight. We'll give you updates on the Washington Capitals, Carolina Hurricanes as well, and then we're also going to go ahead and talk about the Florida Panthers, which is going to be our lead story. By the way, Mike, glad we had an opportunity to catch up over at Black Rock. It was a lot of fun on Mother's Day.
Great to be back, Scott. Yeah, it was a lot of fun last weekend. So let's get to it.
Well, absolutely. Obviously, a lot to get to today. We're going to talk about the depth scoring from the Florida Panthers. They became the first team in over 30 years to feature 17, get this, unique goal scorers through the first 10 games of the postseason. The last team to do it was the 1993 LA Kings. That's unbelievable, isn't it? 17 guys contributing, putting the puck in the back of the net.
Yeah, I mean, that's impressive. I think last week we were talking about them being down 2-0, and I thought it was going to be really tough, not for them to win game 3, which they obviously did, but to really get back in the series just because they've played so much hockey the last couple of years. But kudos to them. They're, when they're getting that many contributors on a nightly basis, I mean, that's what it's all about, right? They really are a complete team. They can play it any way you want it. They sort of remind me, I dare say, a little bit of the early 80s Islanders, that they can play any game you want. You want to play it rough, you want to play it chippy, they can do it. If you want to skate, they can do it. They can play a good defensive game with strong goaltending, or they can light the puck, light the net up like they did last night with 6 against Toronto. So good for them. Wow, it looks like they've got as good a shot as anybody to do it again and be there in the finals for 3 straight years.
Yeah, that's true. Let's talk about Sergei Bobrovsky. Won 148 minutes without allowing a goal. That's a long time. Listen, we both know, Mike, that when you talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs, you ride the hot goaltender, and Sergei Bobrovsky has been that guy for a long time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when he gets his number retired over, I guess they call it Amerant Bank Arena. But he's once again working his magic in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I mean, this guy's always done it. Maybe he didn't do it consistently early in his career, but he wasn't with teams that he could be consistent with. Whether that was Philadelphia. He had that great upset series against the Tampa Bay Lightning when he was with the Columbus Jacket. I still believe it's the only playoff series Columbus has ever won in the history of their organization. But they came in and swept the Lightning, and it was behind his goaltending. Florida went out on a limb and got him and paid big money at the time to get him on a long-term deal. I think it looks like that confidence that they placed in him has really paid dividends. When they made their first run of the Cup final a couple of years ago, it was really all on his back, frankly, he was just out of gas when they got to Vegas in the finals.
Right.
Last year, he was strong all the way through. And this year, with the contributions they're getting, like you just said, from 17 different guys putting the puck in the net, he seems to be hitting his stride now, which is great because, hopefully with just 2 rounds to go, this is the time you want your goalie hot as a pistol.
Well, let's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Ice cold, 23 different players have scored a goal in the Toronto Maple Leafs Florida Panthers series. But guess what? Auston Matthews is not one of them. You need your best player to be able to put the puck in the back of the net, and Auston Matthews has not delivered in this series.
Look, he's a tremendously talented player. Obviously, everybody knows how heavy a shot he has. But what I don't see from a guy like that that's supposed to be a leader is I just don't see that spark. I just don't see that energy to his game. He's he plays a little bit like a cool customer. I get it, but when you're a guy that that's counted on to score as much as he's counted on to score, usually you bring more energy with your game as well. I don't see that from him. I never have. I think that unfortunately, Tavares is just getting a little bit older now. But I
Right.
think that Tavares is really their leader of that team.
Right.
Lander doesn't have the maybe the size or the grit that the other guys have.
Right.
It's a shame, but wow, it's starting to look like a really bad time in the spring for Toronto fans again.
It sure is getting blown out 6-1. I would have
Yeah,
thought there would have been a much better effort the other night. I mean, everybody's criticizing the effort. Here's a team here started the series 2-0, and then you lay an egg in your own area, in your own arena, and they almost looked like they were lifeless the other night.
yeah, crucial game in the playoff, right? To try to get the momentum back. I mean, even though they lost the two games in Florida, they were tight games, they were low-scoring games, and a break here or there, and Toronto could have got a game or even two in Florida while they were here. So no reason to go to back to your home and lay an egg like they did.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that. I bet any other way to say it. But then again, it just reflects the leadership or the lack of leadership they have on the team. And I don't know that Matthews is a bad guy or anything. He's just not an energy guy. I don't think he's a guy that's gonna light the spark in the dressing room. I think he's better as a follower than a leader. And they got outshot 14-4 last night in the first period. I mean, they came out in a crucial, pivotal game in a series against the defending Stanley Cup champs, and they got outshot 14-4 in the first period. That's rough.
I mean, let's face the reality. I'm not asking Austin Matthews to play like Connor McDavid, but this guy is playing anything but like Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid, we know it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when he does win a Stanley Cup. And if Canada is going to break their drought, I think they're going through Edmonton to do it. And Connor McDavid tasted it last year. We'll see if they can finish the job. That'll be for next week. I'll just keep the focus where it's at unless you want to add something to what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, that's a perfect example of a guy who, obviously he's a great player like Matthews, but there's something different, right? I mean, obviously he's got the speed and he can turn on a dime, but there's an electricity to his game. There's a spark to his game, and that really gets other players going on the team when you've got a leader that can do those types of things. Not just produce with some scoring, even though Matthews is not scoring, now in the playoffs. He's still a scorer, but he doesn't add the spark that the other guys are looking to him for. I mean, Ovechkin, like the greatest goal scorer, I guess, now in the history of the NHL. I mean, when he scores goals, there's a spark to him, right? There's an energy to him. When he played it younger, it was definitely excitement watching this guy. There's too many times where I see Matthews and he's just going through the motions.
Royally Quack, just to let you know, we're going to be talking about the LA Kings shortly in the show. Glad to have you back. Been a while, but it's always good to see you popping in when you get a chance. So the reality is Craig Berube is doing the best that he can with the group that he has. Mike says, will you be covering in person tomorrow? Joshua Door, well, I think Mike has other things he's probably doing. I'm sure he'll pay attention for the sake of at least watching the show so we can talk about it next Thursday night here on the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth. Glad to be joined by Mike Santos. We do hockey every Thursday night unless we get the itch to do it on Wednesday night. Good stuff. So, all right, let's go ahead to the predictions for tomorrow night. What do you think is going to happen over in Sunrise?
I think the Panthers are going to put an end to this. I mean, the one thing that they've learned in the last couple of years now with this team, they've got a lot of guys that have been through it, the wars now for 2 years in a row. When they've got the opportunity to put a team away, they're going to put them away, and that's what you've got to learn through experience in the playoffs. You got to put them away. I just saw, I don't know who it was that made a comment about Toronto's goaltending, especially yesterday. I think they put in Marty, who hadn't played a game this season. Number 4. But when you lose your goaltender, questionable play, right? That cost them their goaltender. But when you lose your goaltender, especially for Toronto, it's big because he's not Bobrovsky to start, but he is the number one guy, and I think that was a real pivotal moment in this series for sure.
Let's keep things real. Anthony Stoller is a good goaltender. Joe Woll, there's a reason why he's a number 2 goaltender, because he's not number 1. That's all there is to it. He's had a decent series, don't get me wrong. And Andy Murray hasn't played, I think, for like 5 or 6 years in a playoff game. But the reality is, I think I can make a prediction, which I know I'll never get wrong, unless I'm really wrong. Both teams are going to be home. Florida stays home because they win, and Toronto's going to be flying home. So that's what you're going to be looking at. And I'm not going to venture a score. That's not my job. Let the prognosticators do it. But I think the only thing I'll say is the Panthers should win the series 4-2, and we'll get updates with the Carolina Panthers, Washington Capitals, I'm sure, as the show goes on. Am I right online? I think we're both close to the fact Panthers should close this thing out tomorrow.
Yeah, I think the Panthers have too much experience in this situation, and they know, especially from that Edmonton series last year where it took them fourth try to get it done, that when you've got the opportunity to put a team away, especially when you got a chance to do it at home, you've got to do it. You got to take advantage of it. I think they'll be ready to go. And one more thing on the goaltending, you can have a good goaltender, maybe Stolarz, but in the playoffs, you need a goalie that can win you a couple of games on his own. And that's what Bobrovsky can do, and he's already done it a couple times this year and in this series.
Sure. We have a lot of things to get to. I'm going to go over some coaching moves as well as other things, so stay with us, everybody. Rick Tocchet is now the new Flyers coach. How do you like the choice?
I like it from a PR standpoint and a marketing standpoint. He doesn't have the long locks and the dark hair, black-haired mullet that he used to have skating around in warm-ups in the 80s and early 90s. But I think he's still a Flyer fan favorite. So for a team that's really got a long way to go to be competitive and to have a real future as a regular playoff contender, it's probably a good PR move. How is he as a coach? I really don't know. I mean, he's been around. He's coached at a few places, but he really hasn't stuck around anywhere for a real long time. He hasn't really established himself as a certain type of coach. He walked into Vancouver 2 years ago, and the team got off to a great start. They went into the playoffs, but exited round 2, and then this year they never got it going all year and didn't make the playoffs. So I don't know. We'll see. I think the jury's still out on this guy as what kind of a coach he is. But great PR move for the Flyers.
Yeah, I think so too. Adam Foote, new Vancouver Canucks coach. Some thoughts about that one?
Vancouver Canucks coach, Adam Foote, another guy, I mean, sort of, for me, out of the blue. But, heck of a defenseman. I think that that's probably what they want to do a little bit more of. I mean, you've got a guy like Quinn Hughes that you're trying to keep in the organization. He's a goer, man. He's going to take the puck and in his own end and really bring the offense. But I think they've got to become better all around defensively if they're gonna achieve what they need to achieve and become a regular playoff team out there. So maybe he's the guy.
Couple series we're going to talk about. Edmonton closed out Vegas last night, and as a result, there you go. Edmonton on their way back to the Final Four. Who knows? There could be a rematch with the Panthers, but Panthers, if they get to the Carolina Hurricanes, they have a lot of work to do to see that rematch. But let's talk about Edmonton. They look like they are a team on a mission.
Yeah, wow. When the playoffs started, they would not have been my pick to even get this far. I thought LA would take them out in the first round, and LA had them down 2-0. But something happened in that locker room, and I think what happened is Connor McDavid. I think that's what happened in that locker room. You're just talking about a guy that really leads and gives them a spark. I mean, I saw a clip last week after they lost that game with a bad goal with under a second left, and I don't know who was in the locker room that was able to film this, but even more so, who was in the locker room at that time and then put it out. But he really lit into into the Edmonton goaltender and a few other guys in the room after the game, and I think that he has really grown into that role. And I think just missing out on a Stanley Cup last year has made him very hungry. And he's making all of those players that are his teammates accountable in that locker room. And that's what's doing it because, let's face it, from the goal out, they're not the best team, especially on the blue line, and especially down a player or two with injury. They can put the puck in the net. But what's really impressed me is their effort as a team. And I think it just comes from McDavid, not only his performance on the ice, which seems to always be great, but his leadership off of it now.
Talk about the other game tonight, Dallas-Winnipeg. Dallas has a 3-1 lead in that series that starts at 9:30. Let me address a question in the chat room to Joshua Dora. I guess it's a fair question considering the source. What are my personal thoughts about hockey? Number one, it's physical. Number two, it's been around for over 100 years, and it has a black puck. And I think the hockey players are underpaid, and I'm going to leave it at that, Joshua, for the sake of not ignoring the question, and we'll move on to tonight's series. I do believe they are underpaid, and they definitely spend more money on dental work than any other sport of the four major ones. There you go, Joshua. Didn't ignore it. Didn't give you a straight answer. We continue the flow of the show. All right, Mike, we have another game, and we'll see whether this Canadian team is going to get dropped, meaning the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars. Peter DeBoer, we've talked about him, a man on a mission to try to win it all. Give me your thoughts about tonight.
Yeah, they're really handling business with Winnipeg. I just don't get Winnipeg, and especially their goaltender, Hellebuck. They're a gangbusters team in the regular season, but boy, the playoffs, they just barely got themselves out of round one against St. Louis after being down in that series, and then squeaking it out. I don't even remember now. Was it double or triple overtime when they squeaked it out at home after being down 2 goals with 3 minutes left? But Dallas has got it going, right? And I like their goaltender. I like Jake Ottinger. I think he's a good goaltender. I don't know that he's the level of like a Bobrovsky, but right. But he's got some experience now in playoffs, and we've talked about this guy before. He's due as a coach, I think, to win a Stanley Cup. I mean, he's been there with San Jose, right? He's been there with New Jersey. He's been there with Vegas. He's due. And if Dallas fans are worried at all, then just get in the Game 7, and he'll take care of it from there.
Yeah, I don't think Dallas is looking awfully good. They really, really are. And Peter DeBoer is one of those guys who, like Paul Maurice, at some point you figure and you feel like he's going to win it. Paul Maurice finally got it. I hope that Peter DeBoer has a shot to win it all and carry Lord Stanley Cup as well. I mean, how do you not pull for the guy?
He's a coach. He's a real coach. I know that from experience, just spending a year with him.
Right.
And, there's a lot of guys that get behind the bench that maybe played in the league. There's a lot of guys that have relationships with players. And there's a lot of guys that are cheerleaders and can really pump guys up. But Pete DeBoer is a good old-fashioned coach.
Right.
Teaches. He instills discipline. He relates to players. I think he understands what's going on with certain players. I think he knows how to push buttons with players. Some guys need a pat in the back. Some guys need a kick in the behind. He's just a real coach through and through. And maybe I would say, along with maybe Rod Brind'Amour, I think probably the best all-around coach left of the playoff teams. The other guys, Carberry does a great job in Washington, and Paul Maurice has done a great job in Florida for sure. But I really like the way DeBoer works with his players, and Rod Brind'Amour does that as well.
All right, give me your thoughts about the LA Kings parting ways with GM Rob Blake, and we're going to talk about the newest GM shortly.
Well, I know Rob Blake. I think he's a class guy, real good guy. I'm not so sure that he really wanted to get into management. He had a great career as a player.
Right.
He's really settled into Southern California since going there as a rookie out of Bowling Green. Except for a quick stop in Colorado to win a cup, he had a nice long Hall of Fame career out in LA. But his good friend Luc Robitaille made the call to him when they were looking for a GM, and he answered the call. He is also very close with a couple other guys that he played with, and one of them that he played with in college as well as in the NHL. He's friendly with Nelson Emerson, who he played at Bowling Green with, and Glenn Murray, and the three of them are really tight off the ice, always have been. So those two guys would play crucial roles in the organization. I believe that Glenn Murray and Nelson Emerson will stay in the organization and continue to do what they do. I think Rob was plenty glad to move on. But one point, I don't pretend to know what happened when it happened in LA, but that was an organization that really, I don't want to say floundered, but was just another team in the league for the first 40 years of its existence, and that all changed when two guys were in charge. Dean Lombardi was the GM.
Right.
Daryl Sutter was the coach.
Right.
And they brought them 2 Stanley Cup championships.
Mm-hmm.
I thought did a great job of building a big, tough, skating hockey club with great goaltending and Jonathan Quick, right? Great leadership on that team. They win a couple of cups. Jonathan Quick gets injured. They lose him, and they miss the playoffs 1 year, and both of those guys are out the door. I never understood that.
Right.
I see other guys that don't make playoffs for years and years and years, and they're around, and not that they shouldn't be, but these guys, 1 year of not making the playoffs when you lose your all-star starting goaltender and they're out the door. I never understood why Dean Lombardi and Daryl Sutter were ushered out of LA.
Yeah,
they haven't been able to get back to where they were since.
Yeah, boggles my mind. One more topic. It's been a hotly discussed topic all week, and we'll mention it tonight. That we will go to a station break, have a lot more information to provide. So stay with us, everybody. Appreciate the contributions of Joshua Dorr and Cybrewski in the chat room. We'll continue to move things along, and of course, Royally Quack popped in as well. Great stuff. So we have a lot of good topics to get to as we go rapid fire here on the Sports Exchange Hockey Night in America. All right. So, Mike, are you surprised that the air travel between the U.S. and Canada plunges by 70% compared to the previous year, attributed to the President of the United States with the escalating tensions of the tariff war? I know full well in South Florida we're impacted a lot because, there are a lot of Canadians that do fly down here. Hollywood, of course, I found out yesterday in the South Florida Tribune podcast, I had a realtor by the name of Barbara Fellers. If you haven't seen that show and you want to move to Florida, I encourage you to go to the South Florida Tribune podcast. Yesterday, I had Barbara Feller, and we talked about that very subject. So what are your thoughts about what's taking place between these two countries? I mean, 70% is a lot, let alone between Florida and Canada. I'm not talking about around the country, but it affects us directly, especially South Florida, knowing that the Tampa Bay area is predominantly Midwest.
Yeah, I mean, I notice it right here in my building. I live in a condo, along the beach here in South Florida, and there are many Canadians who live in this building, and some that I haven't seen this year. So I don't think there's any doubt that it's having a big impact. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if it has an impact on whether or not we get a Canadian team in the finals finally this year or not.
Yeah, it will be interesting, and we'll probably talk about that more on next week's edition of the Sports Exchange. With that said, we're going to go to that station break. When we come back, we have a lot more news, so stay with us. Rapid fire. How do you like it so far, Mike?
Pretty good. Keep them coming.
Yeah, we will. I got plenty more to go, but we're going to Candy Ebley for that station break. And if you have a score update, that would be okay, too.
Okay, score update would be, it is still 1-1 with 7:28 left in the second. But The show, South Florida Tribune Publishing Company, published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Talks about his 40-plus years in the media business and how it has evolved and changed. Go get your copy today. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content. Go check it out. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. If you see that red subscribe button, honestly, I don't know why you haven't already subscribed. Don't delay. Hit it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. If you want to be a guest on a show or you have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And if you want to advertise or sponsor, call Scott, 954-304-4941. Back to the program.
Well done, Candy. Great stuff. We'll continue. We're going to revisit a trade, Mike. Bill Zito looks like a genius over this one, where Florida received Sam Bennett, 2022 sixth-round pick, which, by the way, was traded. And Calgary gets Emil Heineman, 2022 second-round pick, traded. So let's talk about the trade at face value. We know full well that the Panthers got a cup out of it and perhaps another one. But what you know, you've been in the front office. How would you revisit this trade in its overall totality?
Well, I don't think there's any way you can't say the Panthers got the edge in this one. You know, they've been in the two finals, and Bennett's been instrumental in both of those runs, and now he's instrumental in one way or another in the third run. And you know, coming from Calgary, I don't know what it was that Bill Zito knew about the Calgary Flames, but he must have watched a lot of Calgary Flames games for a few years, because he really got a lot of talent out of that organization when he first took over as GM of the Panthers. Interesting note about this, though, is Mr. Bennett may have been the one that turned this Toronto series around,
Right.
with his actions with the Toronto goaltender.
Right.
And in the same way, he stuck it to his old GM again, Brad Treliving, who was the GM in Calgary at the time of the trade.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Joshua's term, Bennett the Menace. Not a bad term when you think of the fact that earlier this year we lost Dennis the Menace, who passed away. So now we got Bennett the Menace. So I had to go out there and put that analogy out there. We'll get to that in a few minutes, Joshua. It's a good, fair question. I have other things I want to get to as we move rapid fire. So there are people around the league in the NHL that believe that Kirill Kaprizov it will be paid the highest on his next deal. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I think he's an electrifying player, and I don't think Minnesota can afford to not have him re-signed. You know, they made some strides, particularly early in the season this year. They're also, you know, soon to get off of those anchors that they have in the contract money. They're still paying Suter and Parisi for those crazy long-term deals they signed on July 4th,
right?
You know, many years ago. Yeah, you got to keep this guy. You got to keep this guy in the organization. He's an electrifying player. I think he sells tickets in Minnesota, and he's instant offense.
Okay, let's talk about if Johnny Malkin is likely to retire from the NHL after the 25-26 season. If he does, what a career. I guess he has one more swan song left. Some thoughts about the legacy of Johnny Malkin. We'll only have one more year.
Yeah, you know, a Hall of Famer, an all-time great, you know, happened to be number 2 to Sidney Crosby.
Right.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of, you know, Jagr to Mario, Messier to Gretzky in Edmonton. I mean, when you can have 2 players like that in your organization, man, it's pretty hard not to win, right?
Right.
This guy, I mean, he stepped right in, and really, you know, Crosby was a turning point for that organization again when Pittsburgh won the lottery and they got Crosby. But then to Adam Malkin, you know, what was it, a year later, with his size and the ability to do was able to do. I mean, again, I don't want to compare the way they played, but if it weren't for some of the injuries he's had, I mean, he was a horse. I see him very much in that role that Yager had with Pittsburgh for those years. Mm-hmm. And again, if it wasn't for some of the injuries he's had, he probably could play till 50 like Yager too.
Fair question in the chat room. I'll let you answer it. What do you think of this year's Panthers team versus last? Really like the question. What do you think?
I think that they learned a lot. And what I mean by that is the organization. I give a lot of credit to their coaches, especially, but also the management team. When I say they learned a lot, they learned that you don't win the Stanley Cup from September until April. And so I think they had enough of confidence after the last 2 years making runs to the finals. They knew that they had played a lot of hockey, and they did the things they needed to do to get in the playoffs, not worry about chasing a number 1 overall record or even a first seed in the division, but just understanding that it doesn't matter whose rink you play in this time of year. They're all 200 by 85, and whoever's healthy, whoever has the hot goaltending, and whoever wants it more is going to get the W. So I think they did a great job, especially given the fact that they came out of the Four Nations tournament losing, their leader in Matt Tkachuk for the rest of the season. They also did another great thing because they lost Ekblad to that suspension, but Bill Zito and the team went out and added Seth Jones to the blue line, and so I think that was really interesting. I mean, the last piece, I guess you'd say, who took a little while, as you would expect, being added at the end of the season was Marchand, but now he really fits with that lineup. And this is his time of year. He can play the way he likes to play best.
Yeah, adding Brad Marchand was good. I hated to see a guy like Spencer Knight go, but he'll do a good job with the Chicago Blackhawks for sure. But if you're going to get a player of Seth Jones' caliber, you have to give up a good player, and there's no question about it. That trade will ultimately be a win-win for both of those teams for sure. And as far as I'm concerned, that President's Trophy doesn't mean anything. All you have to do is look at the stats of how many teams have won it and how many have won the Stanley Cup. And right. I don't have to dwell on it a whole lot anyways. But Spencer Knight, I think, is going to be a good goaltender. We know that Seth Jones, one of those win-now type of deals, and Florida can afford to eat that money. So there's no doubt in my mind that the Chicago-Florida trade, I do believe, will be a win-win for both sides. I really like Spencer Knight. I really, really do. We'll continue on here. Lou Lamoriello and Ken Holland rejected opportunities to work with the Buffalo Sabres. Are you surprised?
No, unfortunately. It's a different world in the NHL now. I mean, this isn't the world of 10 years ago. It's certainly not the world of 20 and 30 years ago. Players have lots of options where there's sunshine, no state income tax,
right,
and other things that they favor. If you're not winning in a market like Buffalo, where the winters are cold and the fans are knowledgeable, it's not going to be a destination for free agents. And so you can be the best GM in the world, you can be the best salesperson in the world, but it's going to be really tough to get players to play there.
Yeah, this is an interesting point. I'm going to put it up. I like less people too is a show. Well, you know what? Joshua Dorr, it's not an uncommon thing for broadcasters to have two in the booth, and we're doing it tonight. I feel like it's just Mike and I. But long before we add commentators to begin with, we did it by ourselves. Why not do it? This is a format where it's just he's the expert, I'm the media guy, and he's my source, and I trust the guy. But Josh, I appreciate you acknowledging it in the chat. Nevertheless, thinking of Ken Holland, let's continue the thread. He is now the new general manager of the Los Angeles Kings. Do you like the move by the Kings?
Yeah. Again, we talked about Rob Blake's departure. I think Kenny's still got a lot to give. He certainly has a lot of experience, and for him, and we just talked about him not wanting to go to Buffalo. Much like a free agent player. I mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to Tinseltown, or do you want to go to the place where they invented the Buffalo chicken wing? Right. So It's
Right.
when you've got the pedigree, when you've got the experience and the background that Kenny Holland has, especially with 30 plus years with the Detroit Red Wings, winning some cups, building some great teams, and doing it in different ways. Right on, man. Yeah, I think it's a good move. I don't know how long the move will be for, but look, Lou Lamoriello is still entertaining opportunities in his 80s. So who knows? Kenny could be there for a decade or more.
Yeah, Stan Bowman's done a pretty good job with Edmonton. I don't know how long of a move it is, but right now I think LA is one of those win mode situations. And if you're looking for a guy with win mode right now, then I think Kenny Holland's your guy. He's not worried about building your farm system. He's going to make those key moves like he did. A good example, but he did in Edmonton was when he brought in Evander Kane, and you saw what happened. He gambled on this guy, and Evander Kane has played some productive hockey in Edmonton.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's done the things that were successful to win Stanley Cups, so he knows there. You don't always need to make the big splash, particularly at the deadline. What you need to do is you need to fortify yourselves on those third lines, those fourth lines, those fifth, sixth defensemen that give you depth. I mean, the teams that win cups, like Florida last year, right? I mean, they added the tank and they added Poso at the deadline, right? Not big moves, but important moves, right? Especially the tank played a big role for them. This is a guy that 5 years earlier was counted on, especially when he was in St. Louis, to be a big scorer,
right?
But and the year before, he's brought into the Rangers with Patrick Kane, and they were Rangers for about 45 days.
Right.
So, Kenny Holland knows what he's doing. I think that I think he'll make the right moves instead of worrying about making the big splash. And one more point on Kenny too. I mean, I know a lot of you guys on the show are Red Wing guys from way back when.
Right.
I was in Nashville for years, so unfortunately we ran into them quite a bit, especially in the playoffs. But those teams certainly had lots of talent, whether it was Datsuk or Lindstrom or Kronwall or whoever it might be,
right?
Zetterberg, but they still counted on the Drapers and the Maltbys and the McCartys and those type of guys for years. The Dallas Drakes. I mean, they had big time players, but guys that went out and won them important games a lot of times were those third and fourth line guys. I remember talking with Scotty Bowman time after time after time when he coached there. And after they scored a goal, didn't matter if the line had been out there for 10 seconds or a minute and 10 seconds, he threw the Draper line right out there, right? His philosophy was, we just scored a goal. We've got the momentum. We're not going to give one up and let the momentum turn back so quickly. Right. So get that line out there. They may not score a goal, but they're gonna play smart. They're gonna play really strong defensively, and they'll get us off on the right foot with that momentum still intact.
So role players. I always like Chris Draper as a player anyways, and yes, Scotty Bowman was going to doubt what he's all about. So could Marco Rossi be a good fit for the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Yeah, he could, but I don't think that he's going to make the difference for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, he scored 60 points, I think, for the first time in his career.
Right.
He's an average size guy. If I'm the Pittsburgh Penguins, I think I'm looking to build through the draft. I don't think, as much as I love Sidney Crosby, I don't think they're going to be able to put enough around him to really make a run at the Stanley Cup right now. And so, to add a guy like Rossi, I don't think makes a big enough impact. I'd much rather have Sidney Crosby as part of the process for developing some younger guys.
Right. My sources are telling me that Sam Bennett could be an ideal fit for the New Jersey Devils this summer. So Sam Bennett, one thing I like about him, wears number 9, and we all in Detroit know that Gordie Howe wore number 9, and so did Bobby Hall. So Sam Bennett with the New Jersey Devils, can you see that taking the ride up I-95? I think it could happen.
Well, Zach Parise wore number 9 for the New Jersey Devils.
That's true.
So did Kirk Muller once upon a time. So they had
Right.
some really good number 9s there too. But honestly, I think Sam Bennett is happy being Sam Bennett at his best for the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for, taking a little bit less to be in a place that you really like it, where you really like it. I also think that, again, Florida, no state income tax for a guy like that. That's going to make up some of the difference on a big time deal. This guy's a key part of this team. I don't think he's going to give his services away, but I think he'd try to find a way to stay in Florida if he could, and keep what they got rolling.
Well, last night's Sports Exchange, I was talking about California's taxes, and this was an interesting topic, which is why I'm glad we're talking about Joshua Dorr. You're right; it could be a friendly deal, but he's not going to give his services away, like Mike said. But get this: just say a $1,500,000 contract. 49.5% of your money is going to the state of California. So when you take that 49.5% and you look at all the way, I'm not going to get into the breakdown. It's really immaterial. And then you go to Florida. There's only 7 states around the country that have no state income tax. We have it in Florida, Texas, and Nashville, and Vegas. And I know the 3 other ones. I don't care to mention all. It's not the point. He could definitely take a team-friendly deal, let alone the fact that he likes it here. But think about it. Would you want to play in California 49.5%? That's a lot of money. I mean, if you have a chance to win, it's one thing, but still.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a lot of money to give up, and you just said it. I mean, if you can play in a place like Florida and also have the chance to win, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I mean, there's really been a pivot in the last few years, and you see this where players want to play in Dallas, no state income tax, Vegas, no state income tax, Tampa Bay, Florida, no state income tax. Like, these are places where guys want to be. Add to it good weather. My wife's happy wife, happy life.
Right.
Things are nice, and that break on state income taxes maybe doesn't always even it all out, but the winning does, having a chance to win, and the more guys want to play in those places, the more they're going to attract the good players, and they are going to be winning organizations. That's why we talked about earlier. It's going to be a tough job in Buffalo, and honestly, I think if the Wings don't get it going here soon, it's going to be a tough job there. I mean, people forget that the Wings had some pretty lean years before Jacques Demers came in there, and they started to break a little bit in the 80s.
Right.
They had that little, that little blip in the 90s, but it was really, the turn of the century when they really had the dynasty type teams, and they were attracting players because of their winning ways. But Detroit, Buffalo, Florida, Tampa, no state income tax.
Right.
Tough to turn down.
Yeah, I remember that. Hey, Jay, glad to have you back in the chat room. Always good to see you. I can tell you one thing. Jimmy Butler took the California plunge last night. What happened? Here's the thing. Golden State Warriors are out. Minnesota Timberwolves moved on. And Jimmy Butler wanted to play for a contender, and who knows where he's headed now, but he's not going to the NBA Finals. As we continue on here, we're going to take our tour up to the Vancouver Canucks. Brock Lesnar could cost around $8.5 million on a 6-year deal this summer. Is he worth it?
That's a good question. I mean, they went out on a limb to get the guy, and yeah, I mean, I think he's an important part of the organization right now. That's what you got to pay players now. The salaries, they may not be as great as other sports right now, but if you want to keep your top players home, you got to pay him. He's one of their top players. So yes.
I like Joshua Dorr's sarcasm. That's why I'm putting up. Too bad for Butler. I feel so bad. Yeah, I'm sure you and every other Miami Heat feel the same way. So that's okay, Joshua. You made it to the big show because all you did was simply state the obvious. Jay, I don't feel bad for Butler at all. He didn't show up in the clutch, and Kerr didn't play his second, let alone his second best player, Kaminga. Well, that's another story there. I have a feeling he's probably going to be run out of Golden State anyways. Good point, though. And a shout out to Josh for making improvements. If you aren't getting better, you're getting worse. Okay. Time will tell, but I will always try to side because I'm optimistic on the side of progress. I'm one of those, Mike, I know about you. I have to see it to believe it, and I have to see it to believe it for an extended period of time. But give credit where it's due. As we go back to the New Jersey Devils, who signed Owen Powers for 7-year, 8.35 million annual estimated AAV deal, could be comparable to Luke Hughes. Some thoughts about that one?
Are we talking about Owen Power from Michigan?
Yeah, correct.
I mean, big body, offensive ability to burn. Is he going to be a top all-star guy, or is he going to be Seth Jones? I think the question's still out, meaning that one level below. Big body. We'll see. We'll see. I don't think he's got the dynamic skills of any of the U's, but the U's aren't 6'6" and 225 pounds either.
Let's go to the chat room. Rumors are entered a couple to Golden State for Kaminga, Butler, and 2 first. Total rumor. Well, who knows? I've seen anything happen in the NDL, called the National Drama League. By the end of the term, or the term you have now, National Drama League / load management. There he goes with the NBA, and we'll leave it at that as they continue to fall behind the National Hockey League in the popularity polls these days. I'm not going to turn this into something which I know is an obvious comment, but all you have to do is look at the Four Nations situation versus the All-Star game, and I don't have to comment any further. Had a long day anyways, and I'm having a good time with Mike Santos as I get to talk as fast as I drive, although I haven't seen the road for a few weeks. Hopefully it'll change with my bum thumb. Maybe it gets cleared for takeoff next week. Couple more topics to get to. Marco Sturm is believed to be a candidate for the Boston Bruins head coach vacancy. Do you see it?
I do. I have Marco Sturm here with the Panthers, 2011-12. He is a real smart hockey guy and even a better person. And international experience coming over from Germany. Played with some really good teams in San Jose. Played with some good teams in Boston. And was a real key contributor to our division-winning team that year in 2011-12. He's worked his way. He's put his time in to become a good coach. I could see, especially where Boston is in their process now. I mean, they've pretty much decided we're going to tear it all down and we're going to start building and developing. I think he's a quality guy and a guy that won't necessarily be brought in there to win now, but somebody that can grow along with the team and with the young players they're going to bring in there. I think it'd be a great choice if they chose Marco Sturm. Final
topic of the night. New York Islanders are going to interview Matthew Darche for their GM job. How do you like that?
As somebody who worked for the Islanders and was there just after the glory days, but have a lot of relationships and friends with players and management people from the glory days. I think it's sad that there's nobody from the Islander family that can get involved at a high level with that organization right now. I mean, Matthew Darche, he's been in Tampa, I don't know how many years now, but as an assistant, he's learned some under Julien Brisebois. Is he ready to take over a team? I don't know. I don't know him well enough. I know who he is. I've met him on occasions. At least he's not another refurbished general manager from somewhere else. I mean, he's on the younger side, so maybe he's an up and coming guy. That would be a good thing. But overall, I'm a little sad for the Islanders organization because those Stanley Cup dynasty teams, from 80 to 83, just seem so long ago now.
Jay's a great question. By the way, Jay, if you want to go to the SouthFloridaTribune.com, our writer Stephen Reichel writes on this same topic. BKFC Ice Wars fights only in hockey. What are your thoughts about that? Actually, what I'm going to do is insert this broadcast, Candy. Keep a note of this into Steve's story as well. He has a BKFC Ice War, so you'll have Mike Santos' response to it in there. So take a note of this. What do you think of this? I hear this is pretty interesting stuff.
I haven't seen it, but there's been these different things through the years. I think hockey is, whether you like it or you don't like it, I think hockey's really done its best to get away from fighting. It certainly isn't what it was
right
10 or 15 or 20 years ago. So the gimmicky stuff, I mean, if they want to put on their own show, great. But to actually relate it to the sport of hockey, I'd rather not.
Okay. Well, just so Jay, Stephen's been a great addition to our organization, Stephen Reichel, and Mike Santos is going to have an opportunity to come under professor and the pupil as well. And he does a really, really, really great job on the real and the rare. So if you're looking for combat sports material, boxing and so forth, go to the real and the rare on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. As Andy Ebling would say, if you haven't subscribed already, hit the red subscribe button. You can see all of our programming. And Stephen has a lot of great material too as well. It's really interesting stuff. Another question that Jay has, which I think is interesting, is having worked for the Islanders. I'm going to put it up there really quickly. And it's how much does ownership owe to the Islanders or the family tree when it comes to coaching, GM's, front office? Do you think they owe it to the family?
I don't follow the question. What family? How much ownership?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the question. Maybe if you see it visually, you might be able to process it a little bit.
Oh, well, I think that's what I just said. It's
yeah.
I think it would be great. I just don't know of anyone off the top of my head from the family that would be qualified to step into those types of positions. I mean, the only one that might be interesting, but really doesn't have a lot of experience, would be like a Pat LaFontaine.
Right.
Kenny Morrow, who's I know personally he's been scouting for the organization since he retired as a player. I really don't think he's looking for any other type of role other than that now, and I think he's even doing that more of as a part-time. There's some other players in the organization in development roles, like Aaron Cairns, the big defenseman who played when I was there. I just don't know that there are anybody there. It's anybody there. I mean, you had Garth Snow that went from the backup goalie on the bench to the GM in a matter of about 4 weeks one summer, and then stayed there for about a decade or so. But I just don't know that there's anybody out there with the qualifications that are from the family, the Islanders family, that could do it. Maybe somebody, but I can't think of anyone.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about it as well. And of course, Jay says, thank you for deciphering my question. Your answer was exactly what I was intrigued to hear about. There you go. So we try to go out there, put it all out there. And I know the one thing I like about Rod Peterson on this show is he's actually been on commissioners of leagues before, as well as working on the inside. And he's obviously, no question, one of the best additions I've had in 2025. But our relationship, if you go to Lessons from the Microphone, is about building relationships. And Mike and I met through a mutual friend. We've been friends for a long time. It just so happens that the timing worked out well that we're able to work on this joint venture of working together. In fact, as I transition over to that joint venture, Mike, please give us the latest updates on Hockey Operations LLC, which you have going on. I know you have a t-shirt company. The floor is yours.
Yeah, before I do that, one name just popped into my head from the so-called Islanders family. I mean, he probably spent a quarter of his career there, but he already has a job, and that's Tom Fitzgerald in New Jersey. I mean, he started his career with the Islanders, and he was on that '93 team that that danced its way to the conference finals before losing to Patrick Waugh and the Montreal Canadiens. But other than that, I just can't think of any people in management that spent any type of significant time with the organization, either in management, coaching, or as a player. As far as hockey operations, I mean, right now our primary focus is on the Boston Tea Company,
Right.
Our T-shirt company. We're still building parts of our other platforms. Also, Sports Business Advisors, which is our consulting arm, which involves Steve Violetta, longtime NHL executive, as well as Mark Piazza, longtime NHL executive and Madison Square Garden executive. Our consulting group, we deal with teams, leagues, from anything from operations to sponsorship, corporate partnerships, scheduling, you name it, we can do it. So another one of the hockey operations companies is sportsbusinessadvisors.com.
There you go. Madison Square Garden, that's a place I'd like to get to one day. One thing that entered my mind, what are your thoughts about the fact that Patrick Waugh going to get a new GM, and the Islanders won the NHL draft lottery. So do you think there's going to be a lot more pressure on him now to win? Obviously he's a good coach. He's a heck of a goaltender. I love him as a goaltender. But they won the NHL draft lottery. You think there's a little hope on Long Island?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're going to get a player that's going to come in there and turn the franchise around right away. One of the players I hear that might be an interesting selection for them is probably not going to be the number one overall selection, but maybe they could trade down and still get him as James Hagan, who's from Long Island and played at Boston College this year. And he's a heck of a player. He's a great skater, heads up playmaker, forward from Boston College, grew up in Long Island, but he's probably not the number one overall pick. So maybe there's some dealing they could do. But they've got a lot of pressure, I think, on that scouting staff because we're a little over a month away from the draft, and they don't have a GM. Right. So they've got to have done their meetings and have their lists together already, and have some ideas of what they want to do before a GM even comes in. And a GM could come in and turn everything upside down and have some different ideas. GM could come in and bring some of his own people in here at the last minute. There's so many things that could happen. I don't believe Patrick would be involved in the scouting decisions or the drafting decisions right now as the coach, unless he's maybe being considered for the position himself, which I'm sure he might be interested in that.
Right.
But Patrick can be a pretty interesting guy himself, and whoever is the GM, if it's not Patrick, there's going to have to be some work to be done so that relationship works as well.
Okay, we're going to bring Candy Ebling on, not only for a station break, Candy, but why don't you give everybody a preview of what you have in store on Fire Up and the crew members that you're going to be having tonight?
So we are going to talk a lot of NFL, a lot about NFL schedule. We're going to talk about the dollar owners of the NFL and who's got the highest, richest owner, I should say, in the NFL. I'm going to have a panel of me and Pensman and J.D. Wyatt and Samir and Mr. Ralph Williams from his new studio. So don't forget to tune in after the show is over.
Fire Up Candy Ebling Country Club. Call it the Country Club. Mike, I know you're dying to get in there one of these times. We're going to get you in the Country Club. Oh, you get there after we take care of our hockey commitment for a little while. Hey, you're always welcome to go in there, but we got to take care of business on the Frozen Pond. And don't worry, I still can't wait to get you on Professor and the Pupil with Steve Reichel. This guy is a wild character if I've ever seen one. And if you like combat sports and the fact that you like college wrestling, this Steve Reichel, he's unbelievable. So go ahead, Katie, give us a station break. Look at Mike's already salivating and getting into Country Club with you. And wait till he gets on Professor and the Pupil. This guy, not only does he like this show, but we got a couple of other places Mr. Santos is going to circulate as well. And one other thing I should point out to you that we do have coming up that I've really worked on today. I've got a guy by the name of Cliff Neal who's going to come on. He's going to talk about NHL expansion. I think the only way we can get him scheduled might be on a Wednesday night, though. But this guy is actually a professor at Towson University out on the East Coast. I think he's a guy that I'm sure you'll definitely enjoy. I had him on before, but now I'm looking forward to putting him in a cruise setting. It's going to be unbelievable stuff. All right, Katie, last station break of the night. We're so glad that Mike and I have been able to do rapid fire, covered a lot of topics. So you like the format, Mike, rapid fire, you and I?
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, it is. All right, Katie, give us a station break, and then we're going to turn over to fire up in a moment.
So, Scott, you wrote this book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders, Old School Media versus New School Media. Go grab your copy today, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there is a plethora of great content, so go check it out. If you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, means you haven't subscribed to us yet. I honestly don't know why. Do it today. Don't delay. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Monday nights is baseball night. Tuesday nights is football. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you just never know what you're going to be getting. But luckily for us, tonight we got hockey, and we're going to get football later. If you want to be on a show or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. And if you want to sponsor a show or advertise on a show, call Scott, 954-304-4941. Back to you, Scott.
Thanks, Katie. Look forward to having George Eichhorn and you, Mike, on next Thursday's edition of the Sports Exchange. We had a lot of ground to cover, so I'm glad it was just two of us. George had to obviously go out there and work with me on Tuesday night because we were bogged down with a ton of Lions topics. But I know he says he's looking forward to get back with you and I. But it was a great show. But more importantly, we had a great time, and we really did on Sunday over at the Black Rock for Mother's Day. And I hope all the mothers out there had a wonderful Mother's Day. And we're really looking forward to, obviously, you and I doing a lot of projects going forward. So great job tonight, Mike, here on the Sports Exchange. We'll do it again next Thursday night. Meanwhile, great job by everybody in the chat room, Joshua Doris, Cyberuski, Jay, and everybody else that went ahead and participated. So on behalf of Mike Santos, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City's Animal. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. Enjoy the hockey tonight. You have the Panthers tomorrow, and who knows whatever else is going to happen over the weekend, and we'll bring it all back to next Thursday night. We have great programming as well next week. Can you believe, Mike, Memorial Day weekend is next weekend? Oh, my goodness. I fly. Unbelievable. Good night, everybody, from Scott and Mike. Bye now.